What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Seoul Therapy, the podcast. My name is Daniel.
Daytona?
Today, just like the previous episode, instead of having our usual conversations about current events in the K-hip-hop and K-R&B scene, Daytona and I are going to each talk about our 10 favorite K-hip-hop songs and expand on it. As usual, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on all streaming platforms and don't forget to give us that 5-star rating. Also, for more contents, please go and follow our socials at Seoul_Therapy, and also please support our page on Patreon as well. All right, let's go. My first song, I went with Kwon.
Yes.
And the song is called Symphony, and it's from his mixtape called Boratown.
Yeah.
And dude, when you first introduced me to Kwon, or in this episode or in the podcast, I was kind of taken aback. I was like, who is this Kwon guy? You know, and I thought you were kind of joking around because I kind of saw the album artwork and I was like, yo, what is this? This is very I don't know.
That classic like kind of mixtape covers you see on like Houston albums and stuff, like this super cheesy like kind of vibe to it. But
yeah, so I was just like,
it was for a purpose.
It was, and I was listening to the whole album and I was like, whoa, this kid is something. This kid's got serious talent, and I mean mad talent, because I don't say a lot about high praises for the youngsters because they're young, they still have a long ways to go. But this kid in particular, he is something else, man. He is starting to make noise in the K-hip-hop scene. It's ridiculous. And the song Symphony, dude, I loved all the songs, but Symphony in particular was insane. I just love the sample that he used. What was the sample? What was the...
If I remember correctly, it's got to do with something. Oh man, I knew it. Actually, give me a minute. Wait a minute. I think it was from like a class. It was a classic sample, right?
Yeah. It's really popular, but for some reason I can't get a hold of the name. But it's very addicting. Like the sample itself, it's very melodic and it's just very pleasing to the ears.
Yeah, I actually have written down what it was in my review. Let me check it a little quick. It was the Symphony track, right?
Yeah. That was a great track. I mean, it's short, but
I think it was a Beethoven track, if I remember correctly. It probably was.
Well, like I said, it was short, but it makes sense because it's a mixtape.
Yeah.
And so, dude, I love the lyrics. It's pretty crazy what he says, because I listened to the song with the translations.
Yes. It's a super hardcore album. It's like it's like old Wu-Tang records where it's so comically violent that you can't kind of take it seriously.
Exactly.
But it gives you some kind of a vicious feel to it. Like there are many records like that. There are records like that in hip hop, both the States and Korean stuff. But he's one of the few people that really takes it far. Like
for sure.
So comically stupid in a way. It's sort of better, I guess, than a lot of these contemporaries.
It's kind of in ways it's kind of cynical, the song, but the hook, the chorus, I was like, dang, this kid just used this individual's name in the song. I was like, whoa, for a 15-year-old, this kid's something else. And because nowadays you don't hear stuff like this,
Yeah, you don't hear that much anyway. That was the track he like mentioned, the old dictator guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, whoa. Like out of all of, the history in Korea.
Yeah, by the way, if you're listening to this podcast, what the person he was talking about in the track was responsible for a massacre. So yeah, that kind of dictator, yes.
So in a ways, he's kind of talking about kind of like the corruption in Korea, right?
In a sense, like it's not exactly something about corruption, because he didn't exactly diss contemporary politicians. It's like hearing a German person diss Hitler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. Yeah.
And I just love how at some parts in the song he makes it very heartfelt. You know, he says, I talk about ambition. You know, I'm still a kid. I'm not an adult yet, but when I become an adult, I'm going to change this K-hip hop scene. And I was taken aback because for a youngster like him to say such things, it's kind of rare, you know?
Yeah.
So, man, I can't help but to commend Kwon Gi-baek for this track and the whole mixtape itself. For a starting, you know, introduction to his career, I thought it was absolute stellar.
I brought the classics in because you brought a lot of the contemporary stuff in. And if we were going for Kwon Gi-baek, I guess my recommendation would be Masta Woo's 문제야, which means problem child. Like, when it comes to Korean hip hop, there's not many gun-toting gangsters here because, you know, guns are not allowed here. Which is, I think, a lot of my American listeners would probably think it's great. But in that sense, that doesn't mean like there's no violence. It doesn't mean that there's no kind of social conflict, whatever. And in that sense, this track was probably a breath of fresh air during that period because it was like 서태지's 교실 idea, like in a sense, it was about being a rebellious kid, I guess. Like it was a period in Korean hip hop where street culture has not quite manifested itself. So in a sense, you needed some kind of focal point for what hip hop was supposed to be about. And
true.
In that sense, it had a almost similar beginning to like punk music, like fuck education, fuck school kind of thing. And this was one of the tracks that was in the forefront of that. It was about being a fucking problem child in school and like having a fashion statements that other people shitted on and kind of stuff like that. And the hook is by YDG.
Oh, legend.
Yeah, the hook is by YDG, and Masta will kind of, had this laid back flow that that was not quite, very common at the time. Like people were like trying to be like 90s, like East Coast MCs where you were just rapping. Like this guy was one of the very few people who pushed that laid back kind of flow. And I think that is what made this track so infamous in a sense. And also a reason why it has endured time, I guess. Because if you think about it, like the audio quality is a bit dated and stuff, but people still talk about this track.
Interesting.
Like Sens loves this track, for example. He plays this shit on like Hen's clubs whenever he and Masta will share a stage and stuff like that. So despite it sounding a little bit dated because of its significance, I guess, and the hook sticks like a motherfucker. So that kind of, I think, like there are certain aspects that kind of pulls you back from a minute, but if you like listen to it, like, it's actually kind of catchy stuff. It's like listening to like 2000s trap music, you know?
Oh,
like,
interesting.
Yeah, so it's dated as fuck, but like you're still gonna listen to it. Like Young Jeezy's albums are classics. Like they sound dated, but you know they're anthems. And this was the quintessential Korean hip hop anthem at the time. And this kind of anthemic joints, I guess, are not really made that much anymore. So the classic hip hop anthem, like definitely check it out. The hook sticks, and it really kind of shows you what kind of period Korean hip hop was at that time. Yeah. So Masta Wu's Problem Child. 문제야 in Korean. Yeah.
So for my second song, I went again with a more contemporary song, and I went with TAKEONE. And the song is called Gangnam, featuring Hainae, and it's from TAKEONE's album Commercial Art.
Yeah, that's the recent album that came out like 2 months ago, I think, right?
Yep. And the reason I picked the song is because of the sample. Let's face it. I loved how he used Yoon Jung-shin's sample from the song called Hwanseng.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro,
that's a very what do you call it? It's a very famous
it's
song.
a
It's a pop song, by the way. It's a K-pop song, but not the K-pop idol kind of thing, but the
more
oldies,
ballad.
yeah, the oldies, the Korean ballads, yeah, that kind of thing.
So I was like, really? How in the world did he pull this off? And it's not. But what I like about it is he didn't use half of it. He used just kind of like the intro.
Yeah.
Like the humming and the introduction of it. And I was like, yo, I've heard this somewhere before. and I was like, no way. Did he just sample Yoon Jung-shin's song? And then once the beat dropped, I was like, yo, this is already going to be a classic. It may not be a classic worldwide, but I think in Korea, it's going to be something that's going to be talked about, because when you think of
talked about.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was talked about a lot in the community. Like, oh, this is actually fresh. It's like a lot of the times it's hard to flip Korean music, for example, because it is not exactly compatible to what you call to hip hop, I guess. Like, usually what ends up happening is you flip soul records or that's in the States that no one knows. But to actually flip Korean music is kind of interesting. And it was like, he actually did this kind of like...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like, I guess flipping Yoon Jong-shin is kind of like flipping, I guess, Smokey Robinson or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. It's like, no, that's too old, actually. Smokey Robinson is a bit too old. Yoon Jong-shin kind of acted a lot in the 80s and 90s, so...
I mean, regardless, just sampling off of a...
It's just, one thing clear is just sampling a classic, I guess, yeah. A classic pop song, yeah.
Exactly, and who would have ever thought that it would complement well to a trap beat,
Yeah.
So I was taken aback by that. I was like, TAKEONE? The TAKEONE that I know, who is infamous for his underground stuff, and when I heard the song, I was like, whoa, this is a fresh new take from TAKEONE, and I loved how he threw in some of that modern stuff. And man, I hear the song at least 10 times a day because it's just so good. It's just so good. So
a lot of people like that album.
Yeah, it's very good. So, TAKEONE Gangnam is a classic. Okay,
if we're going for that, I guess it was more of a sing-songy part with that TAKEONE song. So I guess I'll go with Epik High's Fan.
Ooh,
it's a similar kind of, I guess. Am I remembering this correctly? That was a love song, right? Gangnam.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is one too. This is from Epik High's magnum opus, Remapping the Human Soul.
Classic.
This is a classic album. If someone says it is not classic, don't respect their opinions. They're stupid. This was one of the albums that had crossover appeal and appeal to the most core hip hop fans and the masses as well. This was the album that satisfied everybody, and this album is super heavy. Like, it deals with super conscious stuff, as well. But there are lots of emo kind of love songs in it as well, and they're really well constructed and creative when it comes to doing it. And this is a song that is like about unrequited love, and it's very poetic. Like, it has a very electronic but psychedelic in a way kind of beat. Their flow is immaculate. The hook sticks. It's a rap hook, but it's not quite like filled with vocals. So I think that is why this album is such a magnum opus. Like, to really fuse the underground kind of hardcore hip hop with mass appeal, and it came out flawlessly. It's like a double disc, and this shit sold out like a like this shit was selling everywhere. It was everywhere on the radio, and everyone was bumping into the underground. Like this is a quintessential album that kind of every hip hop fan knows. And Fan, the song right here, the song's name is Fan, is kind of an anthem at this point. Like no one doesn't know this song.
Yeah.
If you're not, I mean, not even if you're not a hip hop fan, if you grew up in Korea, like you know what this song is.
Yeah. It's almost kind of like Epik High's different side, I would say, but still sticking to the roots of.
I don't think it's quite different actually. This is what they always do.
That's true.
That's true. This is like Song Cry. Like everyone knows Jay-Z's Song Cry. There's not a person that doesn't know Song Cry.
Of course.
Like it's the same here. No one doesn't know Fan. Like even if they don't know the title, once they hear the first 5 seconds of it, I know that song. Like that's what they say about this song. So beautiful string sections, if I'm remembering correctly, and it fuses really well with these electronic ambient kind of synths, but it is dramatic but not corny. It's reserved but still somehow very emotional. Like it really hits that sweet spot. And I think TAKEONE was kind of trying to do that with his album, and I think this was kind of the blueprint for how to make good commercial hip hop, like remapping the human soul. So not only is it like a time capsule, this is just a good song. This is in fact a great song, period. So look at listen to this, look at the translations. Like it's great. It's just really amazing. So yeah, recommend this strongly. Epik High fan. Yeah.
For sure. So my third song, you know how I always talk about I like diversity in Korean hip hop songs. So I went with Giriboy, and the song's title is The Time Is Now, and it comes from his Fatal 3 album. I think it's a title track, but it's more, I would say, indie. It has like an indie vibe to it because it's not straight hip hop. The instrumentation, the sound production, it's very acousticy because it's more of like kind of like, you know, it has like a alternative kind of folk soundish, but obviously with Giriboy as a rapper, he instills his rap verses in the song. But I just love the music video. The music video is pretty powerful. It focuses on, you know, depression, anxiety, and kind of like the relationship issues, and it shows more of a softer side to Giriboy.
He was always kind of soft.
He was, and I like that about him because he has like a balance. You know, he has like a strong side to him, but he also has a soft side to him. And with this song, it shows more of like his vulnerability. Yeah, and the music video is kind of dark, and it's very, in ways, kind of sad.
Like his artistry kind of involves that kind of thing. I think like it is super vulnerable, it is super emotional, and when it comes to like visuals, he often employs some weird grotesque kind of view a lot of the times. It's not like grotesque in the way like I say, I don't know, like 9 Inch Nails is or something like that. It's more like something's wrong with this kind of. It's not like the imagery itself is like super dark and haunting. Like it's not gothic or anything. No. But once you were watching this, wait a minute, something's going wrong. Yeah. It's kind of like the movie Parasite, where you know something, like the atmosphere is bright and everything. Yeah. But you know, like, actually something's wrong with this place. Like that kind of vibe you see a lot of in Giriboy's, I think, visuals. And that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a very different take on his other songs. So I love how he has, you know, when he drops an album, you don't know what you're going to get from him. Yeah. You don't know if you're going to get the stronger side of him or you're going to get the more vulnerable side of him. So, and this song is that quintessential Giriboy track. If you're looking for like kind of like that soft track, definitely listen to Giriboy's The Time Is Now. Very good.
The great thing about Giriboy is like he talks a lot about like commercial stuff. Like he talks a lot about he makes love songs all the time, but he has this like very creative way of approaching it, the way he writes his lyrics. There's a song called Keyboard
Yeah.
And which is like the lyrics on that track is like
it's an interesting song.
Yeah, if you look at the computer, like there's lots of hotkeys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of writes about the process of a failed relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a failed relationship or trying to get back together? I'm not sure. But anyway, the way he does this is every action he makes is kind of metaphor for a hotkey in the keyboard. Like so, it's
right.
Control. If you like Control C, Control V, like kind of that he actually writes that in the lyrics, and it actually makes perfect sense. So
interesting.
That kind of lyricism like is one of the reasons why you need to listen to Giriboy with translations, because most of the time he's just poetic.
Yep.
But there are always going to be instances where like he writes these mind-blowing conceptual stuff like, I can't believe he actually made this wordplay into an entire song kind of thing.
Exactly.
So always put on the translations, because the average lyrics he uses are poetic, but not only that, there's always going to be surprises that's like, that's like an MF Doom kind of wordplay. Like
exactly. No, I agree.
It's really interesting. If we're going for a more actually Fly was that. Let me go hardcore with this shit.
Okay.
Yes, here. Huckleberry P's Rapadari.
Ooh.
Like this is Huckleberry P, if you don't know, is a very well-known underground rapper.
Yes.
He's under Highlight Records currently. He's the one who is famous for never having to go on media to establish a following.
Yeah.
The problem, like the interesting thing is, he easily has the biggest concerts in underground scene, even though he never went on Show Me the Money or these audition programs, and his fans are incredibly loyal. Like, and his show is notorious for being the most, in a sense, violent, or not violent, but super energized. Like, people go crazy in that shit.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's really hard to get tickets to it too. Like that shit sells it sells out in like 10 seconds or something.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that kind of thing is that kind of underground concerts, like when it comes to underground rappers, like that's the only concert that kind of happens. Like Huckleberry's stuff. Like it's a very symbolic concert. Like there's so many guest that's coming out in that concert too, because every rapper wants to be on that stage.
True.
Unless you have like a direct beef with him or anything. Like everyone wants to go on stage with Huckleberry P in his concert.
True.
Because they want to see that and feel that energy. And also, it is kind of famous for rappers kind of forgetting their lyrics when it comes to Huckleberry P's concerts, because they're so overpowered by the crowd. They are like, what the fuck is happening? And they forget their lyrics all the time.
It's chaotic.
Yeah, the problem is usually the people who go there are super hardcore hip-hop fans, so they kind of fill in the lyrics.
Oh, nice.
Like if the rapper kind of fucks up their lyrics, like the crowd fills that in. They're rapping with him usually most of the time. And Rapadari is kind of a classic number for it, because once the beat comes on, Huckleberry P doesn't even do anything. He just throws the mic to the crowd and they finish the song from front to back.
True, yeah.
Like you don't see that kind of thing. Like this is like, in a sense, because of that, like the underground staple anthem. Like every underground hip hop fan knows this song, and most of the time they kind of know it front to back. And they sing that shit and actually sing it in concert, while Huckleberry P is just like not doing anything. Exactly.
It's a classic. I mean, it's a legendary song.
Like the symbolic significance of this song cannot be stressed enough. Like the album is great too, of course, but this is like that energized kind of. I say this is something like Onyx Slam kind of thing. Like
yeah, I can definitely
once this shit comes up on the concert, like everyone's hyped. Like everyone knows what they're supposed to do. This
you instantaneously know it.
Yeah, just says, yep, we're going now. And people go crazy. People rap the lyrics from front to back.
Yeah.
Like, this is what it is all about. So
yeah, it's a classic, definitely.
Yeah. Can't stress this enough. Very old school beat by Prima Vista.
Oh yes.
These, I think it was an organ sample. I'm not quite sure anymore, but energetic lyrics. Like, the lyrics are basically about nothing. The lyrics are just being it's about how dope I am. But,
exactly.
Yeah, comparing yourself with Badr, like, but it's great. It's a super energetic, super hype, just fun East Coast song. So
yeah.
Huckleberry P Rapidari. Yeah.
So for my fourth song, I picked QM, and I went with Harbor, and it features JERD, and it's off of QM's album Money Breath.
Money Breath, yes.
Yeah, dude. I heard the song for the first time, and I was like, huh? QM is rapping on this type of beat? It has this very clubby, up-tempo dance rhythm, A
lot of people kind of like QM was a great lyricist always, but a lot of people were like, like he's writing on the same type of beats over and over again, and like I think he got kind of pissed, so he kind of switched it up with his Money Breath. Ironically, like, that album is, I think, his most realized work yet.
Yeah.
So
for sure,
it's an irony, but a great irony, I guess.
And I was like, okay. At first, I was very confused when I was listening to the song. I'm not gonna lie, I was very confused, and then I kept listening to it. I was like, okay, it's starting to grow on me. Yes, this is going into my playlist for sure. I just love how in sync QM is with the beat, because I was a bit concerned. I was like, how is he gonna, keep up with this up tempo style? And I know JERD produced this beat too.
Yeah,
so. I was a bit hesitant. I was like, okay,
it's a
fast tempo beat.
Yeah, it almost seems like it was originally JERD's song. I think she just gave it to QM, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I think that was the case. I'm not sure, of course, but it wouldn't. It would explain a lot.
And I was listening to it. I was like, okay, yo, this is amazing song. As much as it sounds kind of crazy, but it works really well. QM's very kind of like that gritty, kind of like that aggressive style.
Yeah, super lyrical kind of.
Very kind of conscious,
Yeah, he's actually one of the few rappers in Korea that are actually conscious. It's not like
for
like,
sure.
A lot of these conscious rappers are just like talking about they're conscious because they rep the culture. But that is not exactly conscious. Not shitting on them. I'm just saying the terminology is wrong. But QM is actually talking about societal problems a lot in his tracks. So yes, he is like the like conscious rapper if you think about it. So
yeah, so it's at first when people listen to it, you might be a bit kind of confused, but if you keep listening to it, it'll grow on you. So I definitely recommend this song.
Yeah, the album concept is so dope. Like, money breath. For sure. Like, if you're just breathing, like, your breath is made up of money. Like, each second, like, the whole concept of the record is how breathing alone is like kind of making you lose money. Like,
that's so true.
It's like about the whole existential crisis of an artist of just existing, and somehow you're just leaking money left and right. Yeah, and I think that kind of starting from that kind of classist narrative, he kind of has some very interesting takes about what it is about being an artist and being a citizen in Korea. Period. So
exactly,
and he actually has a track about COVID on the album too, right?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. I think like check it out. Like not just the song, but check the whole album out. Like the concept is incredibly worth listening to, and of course, if you have translations. You'd better have translations to listen to it, I guess. Yeah. Well, if you're talking about tracks with vocals on them, I guess a classic P-Type's Don Quixote. This heavy bass, right? Heavy bass. It's from the album Heavy Bass, which is irrefutably a classic. Anyone like Epik High's album, if someone says that this is not classic, don't respect their opinion. They're stupid. Heavy Bass is a quintessential hip hop record. Like this
It
is
is,
like
agreed.
I don't know. Like actually,
It's just a classic.
I don't have an album that I can compare this to in the States. Actually, it's like Big Pun meeting Biggie.
Interesting.
Yeah, but in a sense, if Biggie never went commercial, I guess.
Mm.
If what would have happened if Biggie remained kind of underground is kind of like P-Type. Like the way he structures his rhymes, it's like he raps a lot like Biggie. Like he reminds me a lot of Biggie. Like how he looks like kind of reminds me of Biggie as well, because he's a big dude.
Yeah.
But Heavy Bass is a staple classic record that really changed on MC's perspective about how to make an album. Like it is filled with these great sample beats and super poetic lyricism and all of that, and it is one of the most finest displays of Korean rhyming,
without a doubt.
Yeah, and P-Type is famous for that. There's literally like I really can't think of anyone that you can say that outclasses P-Type in rhyming. Like he's one of the best. He's
original.
He's one of the best rhymers in Korean hip hop.
Oh, and, without questions. Yeah, come on.
It's so intricate the way he rhymes his words. And Don Quixote is kind of like the P-Type track.
Yep.
And it has Pisong on the hook. I think he has a new name, right?
Realslow.
Yeah, Realslow. Realslow is actually a veteran. Like he is one of the most forefront R&B singers in Korea.
Yes.
Like he was a person who was doing R&B when R&B kind of never happened in Korea properly. So it was like a classic member of R&B and a classic rapper coming together on a classic track, which is very poetic. It's about the art in general. Like this is about the culture. Like this is the track that's about the culture. Like coming to talk about legacies, coming to talk about what hip hop means in Korea, what hip hop means to him, and in that process, it comes out a very honest delivery and an honest, like soul bearing kind of message. So,
for sure,
it's about what he thinks about the culture in general.
The song's very soulful.
Yeah, it's exactly. P-Type's the definition of what soulful is. So if you want to listen to what Korean hip hop sounded back in the days and how it sounded when we were not as popular as right now, and being what underground meant, like this is a track you go to. Like this is a track that kind of birthed a lot of these underground MCs.
I second that. I agree completely.
So Don Quixote, P-Type, definitely check it out. It's amazing. Amazing album, amazing track, amazing rapper, amazing singer. Like Huizong kills this. So yeah, go for it. Don Quixote, P-Type, yeah.
So for my fifth track, I went with Verbal Jint, and I chose the song "What Am I to Do." It features Curv Moon, and it's off of his recent album called Inflection Point. And again, I love that he used his own song in the beginning. He has
a tendency to do that. He samples a lot of his own songs.
He put "You Look Good" in the introduction. He kind of put that briefly in the intro. He kind of narrated. He's like, "Oh, this has been 10 years in the making, and I finally released the song." And dude, it's just so classic. It's so Verbal Jint. I mean, this song is the Verbal Jint song that you would listen to, and when you listen to it, you're like, there's no explanation. This is Verbal Jint, because a lot of his songs he focuses on like the real stuff, stuff about like social issues, and he's just very lyrical. Yeah, it's so
like I wouldn't say what do you call it? He's not like super lyrical miracle kind of thing, but he's really careful with his words. It's like
that's what I was gonna say.
Like he doesn't have a flashy flow. Like his flow is very what do you call it?
It's very simple. It's
simple but intricate. Like it's not like he's like trying to out rap anybody. Like but the way it's so structured is so solid, and the way he flows on it is so smooth, and that's kind of what draws people in.
Exactly. And what I love about this song in particular is he starts off with kind of like this medium tempo, but then you would think, okay, the song might be kind of like medium to fast tempo, but once the beat drops, it goes into more of a down tempo kind of trap. And I was like, oh snap, this is really...
there's a lot of beat switches on this song.
Yeah, and so I was like,
he's like rapping, like
sick.
rapping kind of thing.
Yeah, it sounds very poetic, as you always say. It's poetic, but it almost sounds like a spoken word song. It doesn't sound like a, very flowy type song. It sounds more spoken word.
I mean, the way the instrumentation kind of stacks up is kind of great too.
Yeah.
Like it reminded me a lot of like Mike Dean on Kanye stuff. Like that synth is, I don't care what nobody says. That synth, I think he got it off the Mike Dean drum kit or something. Like it becomes super anthemy in the end of at the end. Like it's like the instrumentation keeps stacking up and up and up as the track progresses. And then at the end, you get this kind of cathartic release, I guess, sonically. And Verbal Jint is also famous for self-producing a lot of his songs, and this is a case here too. So yeah, definitely amazing.
Yeah, if you are a big Verbal Jint fan, or if you're looking to start listening to Verbal Jint songs, and you're looking for kind of like a modern, kind of take from Verbal Jint, I definitely recommend.
This is the way to go. Yeah,
exactly.
Inflection Point was a solid album too. It was a good album.
It was a good album.
And this is one of the highlights on it too. Yeah. Well, if you're coming with Verbal Jint, I guess I have my own Verbal Jint track to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a classic. This is what made VJ such a kind of Jesus-like figure in hip hop, I guess. It's from his classic album, Affliction. What was it? Dumyeong? How do you call that? I think it was Accusations.
Oh,
yeah, that's the album. Yeah,
wow.
It's
I haven't heard that album in a while.
You didn't hear this album? What the fuck are you doing, man?
No, in a while.
Oh, in a while.
It's been a while. Yeah.
This is the album. Like if you ask people, like not in the sense of what their favorite album is, but like objectively, what do you think is the two most important albums in Korean hip hop history? They either mention Verbal Jint, Affliction, Accusations, or E-Sense's Anecdote. So this, in a sense, is almost Illmatic status.
Yeah,
this album is Illmatic status.
This. Yeah.
Like, this is the album that changed everything. This was the album that made all whack MCs die. They literally failed to put out music after this album. They quit their careers because of this album. This was how impactful this album is. Yeah. And of 1219 Epiphany is a highlight here. Like, the way the beat kind of switches according to his narrative, because this is just a super biographical track. Like, it starts off when he was a kid, and he ends in this status about being the problem child within hip hop that is actually caring about the culture, who has a kind of moral responsibility to kill all these whack MCs for the culture to move forward. So you kind of see this progression from him as a child to this savior-like figure in hip hop through a narrative. And as this narrative progressed, the beat changes accordingly with it. Like, and it's in a sense very similar to the track you just talked about. But if that was kind of self-reflective, this was like kind of a revolutionary kind of moment. Like, you picture like activist, like an activist, like giving a speech in front of a crowd. You like you fucking like see like Lenin kind of thing, you know? Yeah. Like the whole imagery about how him going from like a underdog to the center of this scene and changing and revolutionizing Korean hip hop, it's very persuasive. Usually if MCs talk about it, it's like, yeah, shut up, man. Like, but this was a track that actually did that properly, and it moved a lot of people. This album and this song changed Korean hip hop forever. How you're going to rhyme, how you're going to flow, what kind of stuff you should be talking about on a hip hop record. Like, what is the standard of what being a good MC was established by this album. And
Agreed.
1219 Epiphany is one of the highlights, one of the climaxes of this album. So there's no more need for me to talk about this track anymore. Like, if you do not
completely agree.
Yeah, if you have never listened to this track, you don't know what Korean hip hop is, period. I'm going out on a limb to say this is like you're saying like I never heard about New York State of Mind.
It's
dumb.
It's a classic, man. I mean, it's not even a classic. I would say it's a revolutionary song.
You can't consider yourself a Korean hip hop expert if you have never heard this song. Like, never heard this album. Like, you know what? Just go ahead and listen to the fucking album. Like, it might sound dated because it came out in 2008.
It doesn't matter. It's a classic.
Who cares? Like,
exactly.
Like, if you say, "Oh, this is too dated," well, that's your problem. Fuck you. Listen to this album. You have to. Like, it's
for sure.
Classic. Like, I know the word classic gets thrown around a lot, but this is like, no matter what standard you apply, no matter what kind of high standard you give, like, this is the quintessential classic Korean hip hop track. So
and
1219 Epiphany, check it out.
Make a note on that. Quick note. Classic is an understatement. It's a transcending song. So I second on this song. So definitely go listen to it.
At this point, this is like a historical artifact.
It really is.
Yes.
It really is. So for my sixth song, I chose The Quiett. I selected the song Be My Love. It's from Quiet Storm, my night record, and
the album we talked about last
episode. Yeah. It's, I mean, this is a kind of a lighter side of The Quiett, but it's your typical The Quiett track, but more chill. And this whole album is, I mean, I can't say nothing bad about it. I have nothing but praises, but this album, especially Be My Love. Be My Love is that one track that is, you can never get sick of it.
Yeah, a lot of people say that about this.
It's just so pleasing, bro. You listen to it, you're just like, I wish The Quiett would come out with more songs like this.
This is like The Quiett's Drake moment, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, you know how Drake has this sing-songy tracks?
Yeah.
Like the songs where he's just straight singing in some of his earlier stuff. Like he's kind of whack now, but come at me, Drake, you're whack now. Like when actually Drake was coming onto the scene, like on albums like Take Care, like you had this classic tracks like Marvin's Room. Like there's haters, like people hated Marvin's Room when it came out, but at this point, if you say Marvin's Room is a classic, you have a skewed view on hip hop history. And in a sense, this was that moment. Like, you never heard The Quiett sing on a track before.
No.
Thing is,
never.
like, he's not an amazing singer, but like, you have these average singers, then you have the good singers, then you have the fucking terrible singers.
Yeah.
And if you're a terrible singer, you have to, like, that's a completely different story. A lot of these average singers sound bad because they don't know their range. So they go for a way higher range or a way lower range than they can actually kind of manage, which makes them end up sounding horrible. The Quiett doesn't do that. Like, he knows he's not an exceptional singer, so the melody line he kind of made is so that the range isn't quite dynamic, but he kind of knows his limits. So he has this, he's more on the catchy side of the melody than rather the cathartic side of melody, which means like he's the kind of guy that never kind of, what do you call it? He takes risks. Of course he does.
Yeah.
Like that, but he usually takes those risks regarding style, regarding genre experimentation. He never goes overboard when it comes to his vocal performances.
No.
And that is a strength. You never try to outdo your vocal limitations. This is, don't do it.
Yeah.
It sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And The Quiett doesn't do that, which is something I appreciate about this track a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing more else to say, but just listen to it. If you
Mm,
listen to it, you'll know why I have
yeah,
nothing else to say. It's just
exactly.
that good. And
Hmm.
there's just something about it that has charisma, and
Mm,
it's just good. It's just
yeah,
good. Just please listen to it.
I think that kind of like this is the kind of what do you call it? As I just said, please like not only listen to this song. If you're an artist, if you're a Korean artist especially that is somehow listening to this podcast, please learn from this song.
Yes.
Like you don't need to be like try to be a singer, you know?
Yeah.
This is how you make a singing track when you're not a good singer.
Mm.
Like please learn from this track. Like learn from this. There's so many bullshit on SoundCloud that is
Mm.
trying similar stuff, but they always overextend and end up sounding horrible. They like sound like a screeching pig or something. But
Oh
please,
man.
this is how you do it, people. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is how you do it. I guess if we're talking about the Quiet, we can talk about Beenzino.
Ooh.
Everyone knows this track at this point, so like, it's kind of pointless. But that means it's such a great track, I guess. So,
Exactly.
Dali von Picasso.
Oh, come
Beenzino.
on now.
Yeah,
Come on.
this was an anomaly. This was truly an anomaly in Korean hip hop history. And this was also the anomaly that kind of made a lot of people appreciate hip hop a little bit more. Like not in the
Yeah.
sense like it kind of changed what hip hop a lot of hip hoppers were trying to do. Because it was a period in time when a lot of these mainstream rappers would kind of make lazy ass songs. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have a decent smooth ass beat, and you have these happy beats, and you're rhyming kind of endearingly upon it, and you just give off the chorus to some kind of vocalist, and then that's how you made a hit. It was
Yeah.
lazy as fuck, and they all talked about the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the song that ended that. This was the song that had the same commercial impact as these
Mm-hmm.
songs. Like they a commercial performance, I guess, not impact.
Mm-hmm.
But this song was such a cultural moment in the fact that you didn't have to do that kind of music to do well on the charts. Because
True,
this song
true.
is not about love. This song is not about love.
No.
This song is about pure artistry. This song is a metaphor of Beenzino as a painter.
Mm-hmm.
Salvador Dali, Van Gogh, and Picasso.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the joy of creating art.
Yep.
That kind of song is not supposed to be number one.
Oh yeah.
This was everywhere. Like, you
Yeah.
couldn't possibly avoid this song. Like, this
No, it
was
was
style, detail, and execution of what made it into a hit song.
yeah.
Like, this followed none of the conventions of how to make a hit song, and it somehow was the biggest single of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this shit beat out K-pop idols. Like, this shit beat out a lot of these ballad singers. Like, it was like a freaking artistic machine gun in a sense. Like,
Yeah.
all of y'all are whack. This is how you do it. And it's not like he's singing on the track either. Like, this like, he does use some multi-tracks, but this is
Mm-hmm.
and reverb in a sense. But over this like completely jazzy beat,
I would say it's very
it's a very reserved,
literally art.
it's like a very reserved jazz beat too. It's not
Yeah.
like some kind of like early Coltrane bebop shit. It's like
No.
it's like modal jazz Miles Davis kind of piano chord progression. Like
Yeah.
everything about this song makes it so great was supposed to be factors that makes it not a hit song, but somehow it broke through.
Yeah.
And
The song is abstract
Yeah.
and successful.
yeah, the lyrics are super abstract too. And
Yeah.
somehow that style, that Beenzino's flow, voice, and all the ways he was so intricate with how he made this song kind of made it blow up like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And this was like, man, this was when people started to like, I want to be like him. Like a lot of these rappers right now look at Beenzino as like the quintessential superstar in Korean hip hop because, of course, he talks about love and all those conventional stuff a lot, but his biggest songs are not exactly about them.
No.
Like Boogie On and On was, but no one kind of listens to that song anymore. But this Dali Van Picasso kind of remained a classic until now. Like people still talk about this track. So in a sense, it was like a big fuck you to the establishment, but a statement in itself about how hip hop can be art. About it changed a lot of people's perception about what hip hop is. You were either the guy who was talking about robbing people, or you were either the guy that was the ladies' man. This was the first introduction of a hip hop artist as a real artist. And that shit sold out. And it kind of removed a lot of stigmas that people had about hip hop too. So in a sense, this was a very important cultural moment. So
yeah, agreed.
Of course, if you like, I guess all my podcast listeners already listen to this track because it's so famous. But in a sense,
but for starters,
yeah, I think
I would recommend this song.
Yeah, of course. I think it was an opportunity to kind of explain why this is such a great song. So yeah, Beenzino, Dali Van Picasso. I mean, the album 12 is also great too. So check it out.
So for my next song, I went with very modern, and I went with Coogie. And the song's title is We, and it features The Quiett, and it's from Coogie's first album called Up. It was released last year, and you're probably thinking, why in the world is Coogie in your top 10? And I'll just say this: Coogie is very successful when it comes to hooks. When it comes to choruses, he knows how to make a successful song. And with this song, it's very different because I love the instrumentation. I love the production. It's a very simple piano beat, very basic piano trap beat, but it's the hook that makes the song very elevated. And it matches The Quiett. When he comes in the second verse, this is like, okay, this is reminding me of the old The Quiett, because it has like a simple beat, but it's very reminiscent, and it just very, it syncs with The Quiett. So it's not Coogie's hit song, but it's one of the more underrated hidden gem songs. So
it's
if
a
you're,
B-cut. Yeah,
it is. It's a B cut, but a very good B cut.
Deep cut.
Yeah, it's very good one. It's you would be like, when you're looking for a Coogie song, you wouldn't necessarily be geared towards the song unless someone told you about it. And when I say the hook is very addicting, it is very addicting. It's just listen to the instrumentation, and Coogie's very, singy, hip hop rap style, flows, and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah. I kind of appreciate Coogie in a way, but
yeah.
I was not I'm still kind of not actually. He's kind of the MC, like, that kind of is a half hit and miss for me. Like, it's
for sure.
I like this track, or this is too cliched and stuff like that. But when he actually like, there are times when he actually kind of like, this is interesting kind of thing. So yeah, definitely, I think this was one of those tracks. Like, definitely check it out. Like, even if you're not a fan of Coogie, like, check it out for the quiet verse alone. So
yeah, it's a very hidden gem, I would say.
Yeah, there are deep cuts like this that actually kind of show their talent, I think. Let's go a bit hedonistic with this one.
Okay.
There's a track called off the Jiggy Fellas compilation exclusive. This is a legendary crew in Korean hip hop. Jiggy Fellas is it's just a very huge clique that formed in the mid 2000s that was supposed to, it was made up of crazy people like Fosco, Bill Stacks was on there, Simon Dominic was on there, Sens was in there, the roster was crazy. Anyway,
game over.
This compilation was a defining moment for Sens, because before this track, like, people were kind of still reserved on him because he had a very stagnated kind of block, kind of choppy flow. But the song on there called Guala, which is Korean for being a drunken bastard. Like, you know, the like people who are super drunken, like who are super drunk, like that's what Gwala means. And this was E-Sense's first club anthem.
Okay.
Like, this was what made people tune into E-Sense, because his style of this having a very slovenly kind of fluid flow, that kind of super like fluid, kind of laid back and somehow still on beat, kind of this like, it's like Nas. Like, if you look at Nas, he's not really conventionally rapping. He sounds like he is, but if you look at the details, he's not. And that detail is huge.
Yeah.
This was the first track E-Sense did that. And this was when people started to look at E-Sense like, oh, this is the new guy. This is the king. This is the new king. This is a quintessential club anthem. And he's talking about being super drunk. But the way he sound, like the way he, like, the subject matter is super hedonistic, but the way he talks about it is somehow weirdly poetic.
Interesting.
Yeah, and this kind of, and his flow, his flow is just crazy on this. Like, this is what made him into the underground superstar he is right now. And this was what made him sign like deals with Dynamic Duo and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, of course that didn't turn out well in the end, but anyway. This was what made people tune into E-Sense, and this is the start of E-Sense, I guess, in a sense. So, like, this super club-heavy, bass-heavy beat, and talking about all this hedonistic bullshit, but he still sounded so slick. He sounded like, before then, he was like the philosophical MC. After this, he was the dude that can rap about anything. Like, he can make the most commercial joints, and he can make the most underground joints. It didn't matter. And this, and after a slew of mixtapes, all the Supreme Team catalog, and all of that, and then it turned, this is what made E-Sense the hot rookie. So definitely check this out. Like, it has a somewhat even futuristic kind of beat. Like, this reminded me a lot of like Timbaland stuff, and you know, like the Missy Elliott kind of things, stuff. Like, this is one of them. So yeah, definitely check it out. It was a moment in Korean hip hop back in the 2000s. So this was, you can consider this the start of E-Sense. So check it out.
For sure.
Definitely is a great track.
So for my 8th track, I went with a very welcoming back artist, and he just dropped his mixtape a couple days ago.
ILLSON.
And it's none other than ILLSON, aka Double K, and the song's title is called Own Lane, and it's from his Lost and Jealous mixtape. And I mean, what can I say about ILLSON? Right? His tight rap flows is what makes him so unique. He just spits. He just rhymes on this mixtape. There's no filters on this. It's straight up just him in the studio just rapping. And this song Own Lane defines that. He's just in the studio just kind of going about his business and just rhyming. It has a trap beat because it's produced by Big Banana, but I'm going to say this, Own Lane is probably my favorite track on that mixtape, but I mean, overall, that whole mixtape is amazing. It's a very welcoming back album.
It was a mixtape that really reminded me of like 2000s Young Money stuff. Like, you had like Lil Wayne putting out mixtapes like left and right and stuff like that.
Agreed.
Like, you had Currency doing the same thing, and Dipset was doing that kind of thing too. Like, it's not like you don't look for like great hooks. You don't look for like an album concept. No, if you're on a mixtape, you just expect hot beats and hot rhymes. Hot flows and stuff like that. And he's just straight rapping from beginning to end on this tape. And I think like that kind of mixtape rugged kind of feel really works for Double K, because to be honest, Double K had trouble making albums. Like, he was a great MC, but his albums were never quite well received. Like, you kind of had tracks that were dope as fuck, but then you have these weird tracks like, wait, what are you doing kind of things. Like, and he had none of that. Like, he's best when he's just straight up rapping. And
I would say this mixtape is a rejuvenation. It's a redemption.
Like, I don't even call it a rejuvenation. Like, it's almost like he found himself that he never had found before, because he never had an album like this. he always had these weird commercial joints that weren't actually commercial. Like, it was this, the bad radio joints? Yeah, like his album has so many of them, and it's like, why are you doing this? Just rap, bro. And he did it here. Like the last album kind of did that too, but this was just him fighting his pocket. Finally, he's doing what he's best at. Just rap. Just like the Wayne albums, like Lil Wayne albums. His mixtape catalog is easily better than his albums. And that's because he's just straight rapping. He's not trying to make hits on that. Like, with the exception of like some Carter series stuff, like Lil Wayne has these terrible albums, and that's always because he's trying to make radio hits. Wayne's best when he's just straight up rapping. And that's the similar case for Double K. Like, don't try to make super catchy songs. Just straight rap, bro. And
that's what he's known for.
And this Lost and Jealous tape kind of really paid off. Like,
agreed, 100%.
This is one of his best projects to date.
Yeah,
like the way
I think it's probably his best one.
Now, he has so many flows on this too. Like, I agree with you. Like, he's a veteran that has been in the game so long. But I truly think this is his best project because he laid
without questions.
Yeah, like he laid down his artistic ambitions a little bit in a sense.
Yeah.
Instead, I think he should go for like the revenue ambition instead, because this is his pocket. Like, just straight rap, and then it will solve you. Like, it will solve all the problems you had. Speaking of straight rapping, Double K, aka ILLSON. Actually, it's ILLSON now, right?
Yep.
So it's ILLSON, aka Double K, I guess.
Yeah.
He's a member of a very famous crew in Korean hip hop. He was actually, because this crew is no longer. The crew is defunct now. Which is called the Movement.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Movement was the first hip hop crew. This was the crew that was formed by Drunken Tiger. Yeah, YDG was in it. Dynamic Duo was in it.
Snap.
Epik High was in it. Lee-san was in it. Basically, all the overground hip hop acts that started Korean hip hop was in here. Like, Movement was basically what Korean hip hop was when it was first starting to like manifest in Korea.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and although Double K is not on this track, although ILLSON is not on this track, the most famous posse cut they have is called Movement 3.
Okay.
So, like, you always have these movement cuts on different albums. Like, one, you have it on the, I think you have it on a Drunken Tiger album. 2, I think you had it on Lee Sang's. I'm not sure. The third one, you have it on a CB Mass album. And the fourth one, you had it on a Busy album. So, you know what it is, right? And this is the third posse cut from the Movement crew. And it is regarded as one of the most legendary posse cuts ever.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the introduction of Tasha to the audiences.
Okay.
She has the last verse, although it's not lyrically like hard as fuck. Like her delivery is just so rugged. It kind of made an impression. Like, and every member just rapped their ass off on this track. JK killed it. Shawnee Slow killed it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, CB Mass was all slaughtering it like left and right. Like, this is one of the most finest posse cuts ever regarded in Korean hip hop history. So, Movement 3 by CB Mass, definitely check it out.
For sure.
Yeah. By the way, CB Mass was dynamic
duo.
Yeah, with Kerbin, but Kerbin kind of double crossed him. So once they got Kerbin out, they kind of formed it again, and now it's called Dynamic Duo. So basically, CB Mass and Dynamic Duo is pretty much almost the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
CB Mass became Dynamic Duo because they had to kick a member out. Anyway, this was when there were all 3 members, and this is one of the finest posse cuts in Korean hip hop history. So definitely check it out. CB Mass Movement 3.
For my 9th track, I again went back to ILLSON's Lost and Jealous mixtape, and the song title is Shine. And it's kind of one of his last ones in the mixtape, and it features G2 and Jugg. I'm not familiar with Jugg, but I do know G2 because he was part of Highlight Records.
Yeah.
This song, I remember this song being performed live last year in a program called Do You Know Hip Hop? It was with all the old veteran first generation Korean rappers on a hip hop program, and one of the performances ILLSON performed to the song, and I was like, dude, when is this song going to be released? Because I really liked the track, and then I was like, oh man, we're not going to be able to hear this song because it's unreleased. And finally, I looked at the track list. I was like, no way, Shine was going to be on this album.
Yeah,
and it's another ILLSON spitting, rhymes just with this tight raw flows, and again, it's produced by Big Banana because he produces a lot of trap beats. So it's kind of trap, but it's like a hybrid between boom bap and trap, I would say. But I mean, this mixtape in general, I've been listening to this whole week, so over and over and over. So this is another quintessential ILLSON kind of just in your face type song. Yeah, kind of his identity, who he is as an identity, as a person.
Same thing I just said a lot of times before regarding how Double K should, just rap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the highlights on that mixtape. So great. Drunken Tiger, I guess. Since we keep talking about movement members here. This is the first ever hip hop song, I think. This is the first proper Korean hip hop song ever recorded, which is Do You Know Hip Hop? Like 너희가 힙합을 아느냐 by Drunken Tiger. Sting sample. Shape of My Heart. Yes, Shape of My Heart sample. And that guitar melody has been used in other hip-hop songs as well, namely Nas's The Message. So, and that somber guitar melody really makes this song. And I think that's what made people gravitate towards this. It has this almost melancholy feel to it. Like the lyrics are hardcore, but since it's melancholy, you get this weird kind of it's sad but hard at the same time kind of thing. Yeah. And I think this started Korean hip hop. Like before this track, there always have been imitations in a sense, but it was more of a part of a dance crew. Like if you're rapping, it's not exactly about hip hop. It was about being part of a dance crew. It was being a dance group. So it was used more as a crutch. Like this was the first instance when you're really rapping for the sake of rapping. And it's a classic track. At this point, like this is what started Korean hip hop. So
exactly. It was like a foundational song, I would say.
Yeah. I have nothing more to say actually about this. Like,
it's a classic. I mean, what more can you say,
Yeah, it's like Run DMC. Like, it's like Eric B and Rakim kind of thing. So listen to it. Like, at least if you think it's dated, it's supposed to be dated because it came from such a long time ago. And I think if you're a Korean hip hop fan that only knows what is going on right now, I think it will kind of show you where it all came from. So
exactly.
Definitely check this track out. It's a great song at the end of the day. So it comes from the album Year of the Tiger, which is Drunken Tiger's first album, and this is a highlight in that album. So yeah, check it out.
So for my final song, I went with another veteran, Doki. And I went with the song called Still on My Way featuring Zion T, and it was from Doki's album Multi-Illionaire.
Yeah.
And I must say, this is what got me started listening to more Korean hip hop. Because I was kind of late to the Korean hip hop game, I would say, in terms of, getting more into the realm of Korean hip hop.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I heard this song, I just felt the sense of authenticity, originality. Because as I kept listening to more Toki's music, I listened to his past discography, and I realized that there was more, kind of like a story, like a series, kind of like, there was like On My Way Part 1.
Yeah, this is Part 2.
This is Part 2.
And so the third one was released as a single.
And so I was like, wow, this guy is building something, insane here. And
Yeah,
this song was very, I would say, just kind of just like a story, just kind of
it's
telling people,
celebratory in a
yeah,
sense.
it is. Yeah, kind of like the struggles that he came from. And
Yeah.
I would say it's the quintessential started from the bottom track as well, just,
Yeah, if you look at the progression of On My Way, like the first On My Way was about being in the struggle.
yeah,
Still On My Way was about escaping the struggle, but somehow
yeah,
keeping the grind up.
yeah.
And On My Way 3 was how he's kind of disillusioned by success and like he's tired of grinding now.
Mm,
So there's this natural progression you see in the three like sequels because On My
hmm.
Way was a title that Toki used always in important moments of his life.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be a title that is going to pop up sometime in the future. On My Way 4 is
Hmm.
definitely on this way. So it's like a series, and if you look at and listen to those individual songs, you kind of see where Toki was at the time,
Yeah.
which makes it interesting. And Still On My Way is a track when Toki was at his prime.
Mm,
Like before all the mental ill health issues, before all
yeah.
the, bullshit talking by the masses, this was when he was at the height of the game. This was when he like Illionaire was everywhere. This was when Beenzino
Hmm.
was making hits. This was when the Quiett was making hits. Like this was when everyone began to know what Illionaire was all about, and
That's true.
that kind of shows in this. It kind of shows in the song.
And in my opinion, I would say this is just my opinion. I
Mhm.
would say Still On My Way is probably the best one
Yeah, a lot
out
of
of
people
the
say
three.
that. I actually agree with that too.
Yeah.
It's
I love
memorable.
Zion T on it too.
Yeah,
Zion T's chorus, it's just it kind of settles down the
yeah,
song. It allows the melody to breathe
yeah,
before Toki gets back on his verses. So it
yeah,
complements really well.
yeah. It really does. Great track. And I mean,
Hmm.
I'm looking forward for On My Way 4, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. All right. Since we talked a lot about the movement members, oh yeah, Toki was a member of the movement as well. My last track is a super underground classic cut
Okay.
who goes by the name of Fana.
Yes.
Um,
Wow.
guy's basically the doom of Korea. Like, no one rhymes better than him. I know I mentioned
Oof.
P Type, and you know what? I will actually go as far to say Fana goes further than P Type. It's
Wow.
hard. It's harder to find words that don't rhyme in Fana's songs.
That's that's true.
Like every word is a part of a rhyme.
Mm.
Like it's like I just said, it's hard to find words that actually don't rhyme in Hana's
Hmm.
songs. And he has this dope lyrical concepts. It's not like he's rhyming bullshit. He's all
No.
rhyming and telling stories and wordplay that is kind of mind blowing. And one of the best examples is a song called "The Masquerade Ball" in his first
Okay.
album, Fanatic. Beat by the Quiett.
A.
This was Hana was a member of Soul Company, and this was one of
Yep.
the Fanatic. This album, Fanatic, was one of the best examples of what great music Soul Company made back in the days.
Mm.
This track is a societal one. It's about paranoia of human relationships in modern society,
Hmm.
and it is delivered through this metaphor of a masquerade ball, where you don't know exactly what kind of expression anyone is making because you can't look at their face properly.
Mm.
So, in a sense, it's a commentary on how modern society, through its alienation of individuals, kind of destroys human connection. And this
Mm.
kind of very heavy topic is delivered through a crazy amount of intricate rhyming, and somehow this metaphor never fails. It's actually like you're in a masquerade ball, but it's kind of a metaphor for society. And
Yeah.
this is one of the most exceptional records in conscious hip hop, and this is what makes Hana great. Like his technical proficiency and his message kind of aligns with it. It's like you know how MF Doom really didn't talk much about society, but it's more of a villain kind of gimmick, which is still great, which is still amazing. So it's like Mos Def and MF Doom rolled into one. He's rhyming like Doom, but he has the subject matter of a Mos Def. Of course, Mos Def is a great rhymer himself, but you know what I'm talking about here. So this is one of the finest examples of Korean conscious hip hop, of Korean underground hip hop. Like this is not the only track. Like this is the most well-known Hana track, but this kind of like intricacy, this kind of lyrical execution is average for Hana. Like,
oh wow,
this is what he does every day. So if you are into if you can find the translations and other stuff, like this is what being a lyricist is about. Hana is like an S tier, like the lyricist of all the lyricists kind of thing. So definitely check this track out. It's a very smooth track too. So I don't think it is necessarily going to be like sonically unpleasing either. Like it's very musically adept as well. So if you can find the translation, it's great. If you can't, still listen to the track. It is great musically. Like you can hear how he's so rhyming so well. Like you will hear how he's rhyming, even though you're not familiar with Korean hip hop, because it is so meticulously done.
True.
Yeah. So definitely check this out. This is my final recommendation for the day, I think. Hana's Masquerade Ball.
So as we begin to slowly wrap up our show, you know, as usual, is there one specific track from our selection of songs today that you would like to really, really share or recommend to our listeners?
I think the last one, Hana, because I think the other tracks, I think you could have kind of known what it is through other platforms.
True.
Limited as they are, I think they were mentioned someplace, somewhere. But I don't think no one mentioned Hana's Masquerade Ball before. And so definitely check this one out.
For me, I chose TAKEONE, Gangnam again, featuring Hainae. And again, besides this really famous sample that he used from Yoon Jung-shin, I really want to give a shout out to the featuring Hainae. I really want to give her a shout out because yeah, man, she was a producer and of his album, and she's also a jazz music vocalist. Yeah, and so I really thought her style really fit the song. Yeah, it just fit really well. Sonically, if you listen to it, it matches well, and I don't mean that just, you know, take it for what it is, and I really mean it. It really works well because the beat itself, it's not too aggressive or too light. It's like right in the middle, but in ways it doesn't overpower one another. It just blends well together. So I really, really recommend to the listeners to take a listen to TAKEONE's Gangnam, or even TAKEONE's music in general. Yeah, I mean, he's such an underground artist, in my opinion. That never gets the credit that he deserves. So I definitely recommend this song. Yeah, so well, that's all the time we have for today, but please do comment and let us know what you think of today's topic. And if you have your own top 10 artists and songs, please comment down below. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please go and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms, and please give us that 5-star rating. If you want more K-hip hop contents, go check out Daytona's Instagram at MYK_Daytona for K-hip hop album reviews. And also follow our social media page at Seoul_Therapy. Thank you guys so much, and see you guys next time. Peace.